I would like to share my screen with you to start with the first part of this training. So I hope you can you see it?
Not yet.
So I hope you can see it now.
Yes, now it's good. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Yeah, a couple of words about myself. As Saale already introduced, I am a senior advisor of Stockholm-based independent think tank called Global Utmaning, which is in English Global Challenge. And I were also working at the City of Tallinn Strategy Center of the City of Tallinn, where I'm leading the work related to sustainable urban development and international relations. But I also team lead of Tallinn 2023 European Green Capital. Besides of that, I'm also CEO of a small consultancy company called Baltic Talks. And in this company, we are mainly working on bringing together different stakeholders from the Baltics region, but also across Europe around the topics related to sustainability, SDGs, and climate. I was working more than 6 years at the Council of the Baltic Sea States before I started at the City of Tallinn, and there I was coordinating the collaboration between 11 countries around the Baltic Sea on the issues related to sustainable development and to 2030 agenda. But when it comes to sustainable development, then of course we can ask, why should we care? And what is the role of private sector and businesses when it comes to implementation of sustainable development goals? Before we are going into the details of that topic, I also would like to say a couple of words about Global Utmaning, what we are doing, what our goals and aims are. We have over 90 senior advisors, which are working around 4 core topics the Global Utmaning is focusing. We have also more than 20 future thinkers, and actually this is the network of younger advisors and youth representatives which are part of World Economic Forum's Global Shapers community. And the main goal of Global Utmaning is to contribute sustainable development. Specific perspective and focus is Swedish and Nordic, and working with policy development within the EU and also strengthening global governance towards the 2030 agenda for sustainable development. As I mentioned, the Global Utmaning, we have 4 programs currently, and these 90 senior advisors are divided between these programs. So we have program on climate and resources, and Global Utmaning is leading the big, let's say, initiative called Sweden's Road to Zero, which is related to achieving carbon neutrality nationally. We have also a program on climate agenda and a couple of research programs related to climate and sustainability design. We have also a program on sustainable cities, and this is the program and group of the senior advisors I am involved. And under that, we have currently many different activities ongoing. For example, Her City project, which is focusing on, let's say, feminist approach to urban planning. We are also coordinating UN local 2030 Hub Sweden. We are also initiating and coordinating several sustainability-related leadership programs. Currently, for example, we have one which we are carrying out in European Eastern partnership countries. Then we have also a program on equality and democracy. Here we are coordinating the Nordic Council of Ministers civil society network, which is very new and recently established network. And also we are working on sustainable consumption and production and new economics issues. And here we are currently running the project called Women Leaders. And this project involves female entrepreneurs, not only from Sweden, but also from different other countries around the world. But when it comes to sustainable development goals, then I have to say that it can be considered as one of the most, let's say, ambitious, but also one of the most important to-do lists in the world we have ever had. And why it is so ambitious and why it is so important, it is because that 2015, the world leader under the United Nations agreed on 17 sustainable development goals. There are 193 countries that have joined with the 2030 agenda and SDGs. European Union has joined with this commitment as well. And when it comes to those 17 goals, then under those goals, there are 169 targets and 232 indicators. As there are also some Estonians participating in this training, and as there are many Latvians, I also would like to say that in Estonia, we have one goal more. So we don't have not 17, but we have 18 sustainable development goals in Estonia, and the 18th one is culture. So what sustainable development goals are? I'm not going into the very detail. I'm not going to introduce all the targets and indicators under each of the 17 goals, but just very briefly what these goals are about and what are the main elements and components of SDGs. So the first SDG is about reducing and ending the poverty in all its forms and everywhere. We can, of course, think that this SDG is for developing countries and there is nothing to do with us, which of course is not true from two perspectives. The first one is that in our countries, in developed countries, we also have the people in need. We have people, homeless people, and we have those who have very, very low income. So definitely it is our problem as well. And secondly, by very extensive agriculture, our companies are actually doing in developing countries. We are creating in these countries very, very big problems with availability of the food, with availability of land. And in that sense, we are actually part of causing the poverty in developing countries. That is the aspect we also have to take into account when producing the food, but not only. When it comes to forest industry, we all know what is the situation in Amazon forest, for example. So it is not, I mean, those problems, we have imported them and caused the problems in third countries. Then secondly, hunger. And again, the aim of this goal is to end hunger. achieve food security and improved nutrition, and also promote sustainable agriculture. Then goal 3, well-being and good health. It is about promoting healthy lifestyles and well-being for all and at all ages. And goal 4 is about inclusive and quality education and also promoting lifelong learning. Goal 5 is about gender equality, and it is about empowering women and girls. But gender equality, of course, doesn't only mean, and it is not only about women and girls. Gender equality is also about giving equal opportunities also for men in some areas where men are underrepresented. Goal 5, it is about clean water and sanitation, and mainly to provide access to water and sanitation. And again, this is not only the problem of developing countries, we also have the areas, especially in rural regions, where there is problems with water and problems with sanitation. Goal 7, access to affordable, reliable, sustainable and modern energy for all. It is about not only affordability, of course, but it is also about the renewable use of and switching to renewable energies. Promoting sustainable economic growth and employment and providing decent work for all is the main objective of Goal 8. And Goal 9 is about building environment and infrastructure. It is about promoting innovation and sustainable industrialization. Goal 9 is about reducing inequality within and among countries. And again, this is not only the problem of underdeveloped countries, but it is also the problem with us. I might say that, for example, when it comes to Tallinn is one of the most segregated capital in Europe, and this is a very big problem, and we have to work with that in order to reduce economical, social and geographical segregation. Also Goal 11, which is about sustainable cities and communities, it is about resiliency and sustainability of the cities. And this is the goal which actually has to work with all the rest 16 sustainable development goals. Goal 12, sustainable consumption and production. Of course, it is very much related to private sector actors as well, but actually all SDGs are relevant for private sector representatives and actors as well. Goal 13, it is about climate action, and it is about reducing CO2 emissions. It is about fighting against the global warming, and it is about adapting with the changing climate. When it comes to Goal 14, it is about life below water. It is about preserving and conserving our environment, maritime environment, and it is about sustainable use of marine resources. And Goal 15 is about biodiversity, saving life on land. It is about halting and reversing land degradation and also halting biodiversity loss. Goal 16 is about peaceful and inclusive societies. It is about transparency when it comes to policy development and implementation. It is about democratic processes, and it is about engaging people and involving different stakeholders in decision-making processes. And Goal 17 is about partnerships for sustainable development, and it is not only about global partnerships for SDGs, but it is also the partnerships between the sectors or across the sectors. It is about the partnerships among the civil society organizations and also among the cities, among the regions, so that goal can be translated into different, let's say, locations and constellations. Now there are a couple of very important elements when it comes to SDGs. And one important element is that those goals, they apply to every nation and every sector, which means that cities, businesses, schools, and all organizations are challenged to act. So those goals are not only for the governments and for politicians and for diplomats, but these are for all of us. And that's one of the very important elements of SDGs is universality. They are universal. The second important element or principle of SDGs is that in order to achieve SDGs by 2030, it means that we have to make very big and fundamental changes in how we live in this planet, but also in how we lead our countries, how we lead our organizations, how we lead our companies. It requires completely different ways of thinking, completely different mindset, and that's why it is called transformation. We need transformative changes in order to achieve and work with SDGs. And the third important element is integration. And why this integration is I think, one of the most important elements is that we have to see those goals are interconnected. We have to see them as a system. We cannot pick just one or couple of SDGs, but we have actually to work with all of them, all 17. And I know it is very, very hard. It is very complicated. It's very challenging. But in order to achieve all SDGs, we need to have integrated approach, and we have to focus on all of them. Later, I will provide a couple of tools on how you can work with integrated approach to SDGs. So each SDG is, of course, important in itself, but they are all also connected, and they are also connected because they are connected because that the working, let's say, negative or positive developments in one goal will impact also several other goals. Let's take, for example, goal 11, climate change. Of course, when the world is continuing increasing CO2 emissions, which means that we will not meet the 1.5 degree as agreed in Paris Climate Accord, it already has very negative impacts to the environment, to the biodiversity, to societies, and the ways we are living. So in that sense, it is very much, they all are very much connected. Now, also one important element because SDGs are connected is that SDGs are about breaking down traditional silos. between the places. As I said, that SDGs are universal, which means that they apply to all countries, regardless their development status. They break down traditional silos when it comes to definitions, because the SDGs define sustainability through 3 dimensions, which are environment, social, and economic dimensions. And when you compare the SDGs with the Millennium Development Goals, which were agreed at the UN level before 2030 agenda, then Millennium Development Goals were very much focusing on environmental issues only. And of course, the environment is the most important, let's say, element when it comes to sustainability. But it is very important also to address social and economic dimensions when we are talking about sustainable development. It is also about breaking the silos between so-called departments, because, as I said, the SDGs require policy coherence and also the whole of government approach. So the different sectors and departments should collaborate across the silos, and they have to find the new partnerships and ways to solve jointly the challenges we are facing today. It is also about breaking silos between the sectors. So the SDGs are designed for all sectors, which actually means that it requires participation from all the sectors. And it is also breaking down traditional silos between the people, because one of the most important, let's say, principles of the SDGs is that no one should be left behind, which means that the SDGs require inclusiveness and participation and engagement, particularly the most vulnerable groups, those which voice are, let's say, not very often heard. Just a couple of words about where we are and where countries are when it comes to progress or SDGs performance. This is the latest Sustainable Development Goals report, which is produced by Sustainable Development Solutions Network in collaboration with Bertelsmann Stiftung. And as you can see, that classically all Nordic countries are in the top list, and this is the global list. So basically all countries who have joined with SDGs and are like majority of the countries in the world, the Nordic countries are in the top of this ranking list. I'm quite happy that Estonia is also placed in very high position. Estonia is in top 10. And also when it comes to Latvia is holding 22nd place and Lithuania 31st. So I have to say that all Baltic countries are also doing quite well globally. But when it comes to the Baltic Sea region, then when I was working at the Council of the Baltic Sea States, then I initiated the reports called Baltic 2030 Bumps on the Road, and how the Baltic Sea States are performing on SDGs. Here you can actually see that although we are globally very high, our rankings are very, very high, and we are holding very high positions, then when it comes to a closer look, then we have several areas where actually all the Baltic Sea region countries, including the Nordic countries, including the Baltic countries, we are struggling and we are lagging behind. The progress hasn't been very fast. We have several SDGs which needs to be improved. The one area I would like to highlight and stress is SDG 12, which is about responsible consumption and production, because it is very much also connected to the topic of today's presentation. And actually under this goal, the biggest challenges for our countries are e-waste, and secondly, use of resources, because our CO2 emissions for producing the products is too high comparing to some other countries in the world. Climate action is the second one, which is very challenging. Life below water, we know that the environmental situation of the Baltic Sea is not very good. It has slightly improved, but there are new challenges raised. For example, pollution related to microplastic, pollution related to pharmaceuticals. And these are the challenges which needs completely new use of completely new technologies in order to clean the wastewater. Life on land, we know what is happening in our forests. There is too extensive forest industry. We are losing our biodiversity because of that. Now, I'm not going into the details, but why sustainable production and consumption and why SDGs as such are very important. I'm not going into details, as I said, because we all know what is happening globally with our environment, what is happening globally when it comes to impact of the global warming. When it comes to problems with plastic pollution of the oceans and seas, when it comes to overexploiting our lands, and I think it is very important also because that without all the services provided by our planet Earth and by our nature. Without all those services, we will not survive. We need clean air, we need clean water, we need biodiversity and richness of our nature. So when we damage the natural world, we are damaging ourselves. So keeping and finding the balance between the need of our societies and people and our environment is extremely important. Some of the scientists are saying that we are living in Anthropocene right now, and it is the current geological period where basically all Earth processes are controlled and influenced by humans. So we are very responsible on what is happening in this planet, and we cannot continue like this anymore, because otherwise there will be no future for the human beings in this planet. And we know that young people, they are very concerned because it is about their future. We know, everyone knows Greta Thunberg, and I'm very happy to say that actually Global Utmaning has been behind of Greta Thunberg when it comes to outreaching globally. There is one of our senior advisors who has been really supporting and helping her to outreach. So young people are very concerned and they are demanding not only from the governments, but also from the whole society and from also the private sector to act because their future is on the stake. So that's why there are new trends which you can see what is happening right now. And one of those trends is that more and more people, and not only young people, but mainly young people, they are looking for meaningful work, which means that they are having value-based expectations for the job. There has been carried out one survey among millennials, and it has been done by World Economic Forum and Fast Company by 2019. In order to get an overview, the expectations of the millennials when it comes to work and let's say their role as employee. So the results was that 40% of millennials, they said that they have chosen a job because the company performed better on sustainability than other choices. 75% said that they would take smaller salary to work at a company which is more in line with their values. 75% said that they will change their job within 2 to 4 years in case the company is not addressing the climate issues. And more than half said that they would not take a job in the company that was not or is not socially responsible. So young people are looking for meaningful work. They are looking for values, and they would like to be part of positive change in their, let's say, professional career. So I think this is one very important element when we are talking about the business strategies and when we are talking about what are the expectations of the employees when they are looking a job. And I think that is very big, let's say, change and shift when it comes to mindset, because definitely my generation, we did not think like that, like the current young people are. The second, I think, important aspect is that there are also changed expectations and demands from the customers, because people are becoming more and more environmentally aware. They are more and more demanding sustainable products from sustainable brands. So they are more and more making their decisions what to buy and from where to buy. So they are looking for businesses that are sharing their values. And Forbes carried out one research in US and UK, and they asked from the people, it is from November 2018, that if people would like would prefer the brands who help the consumers to be more environmentally friendly and ethical in consumers' everyday life. And as you see, the majority said that yes, they would like to companies to be more, let's say, responsible, so that they can help the consumers to be more environmentally ethical and responsible. So changed perceptions when it comes to employees and change perceptions when it comes to consumers. And I think these two are very big changes that are happening, and that, of course, requires completely new ways of thinking and completely different, let's say, business strategies also from the companies. Also, when it comes to, because we know about all those environmental challenges and problems, then there are more and more also economic scientists who are saying that we need to pay attention not just to GDP, but also to the state of the natural world and the well-being of the citizens. We know that more and more countries, but also the cities and organizations are using global happiness and well-being indexes as alternatives for measuring the performance of the country or of the city or of the organization. Because they are better when it comes to measuring the success of the society as a whole. And there are also more and more, let's say, voices that are saying that it is important to measure the impact of the economy on the environment and people, in the sense that we have to put the price tag on the actual costs of pollution and resources, and also natural resources used by the companies for producing the goods and products. One very important, let's say, development or aspect is also that if you are following EU policies, especially when it comes to current European Commission, then also European Commission is moving more and more towards sustainability, green economy, circular economy. They just recent European Commission came up with Fit for 55 initiative, which is about to set much more ambitious goals when it comes to CO2 emission reduction, and when it comes to climate neutrality. European Green Deal is moving away from supporting the fossil fuels-based economies and investments, and the same is doing, for example, European Investment Bank. I think it was already 2 years ago when they decided, they made decision that they will not provide any loans to the projects that are about or using the fossil fuels. So there are, let's say, the biggest trends as well, and more general discussions on whether we have to move away from GDP. There are also new concepts of new economy. For example, Kate Raworth, she came out, I think it was 2019, if I remember correctly. She came out with her donut economy concept, which is about regenerative and distributive economy that seeks better balance between the environment and the needs of the people. And the donut mean that the outer ring is about 9 ecological limits of Earth. That humanity must not collectively overshoot, so that we have really to use our natural resources, which we are right now overusing. We have to use them much more responsibly, so that the environment is able to recover and to provide us for the future as well. And also the inner ring, which is about 12 essentials of life that no one in society should be deprived of. And this is very much in line of Agenda 2030 principle that no one should not be left behind. And it is about providing, those basic services for all the people, which is about clean water, it is about food, health, education, peace and justice, social equality, gender equality, affordable housing, affordable and clean energy. So it is very much related to sustainable development, let's say, principles and sustainability principles. And then this sweet spot is where which is environmentally safe and socially just, and where humanity can thrive. So when it comes to economies and private sector, then we have to look at that sweet spot, because that is where we can keep the balance between the limited natural resources and the needs of humanity. And that's why also when it comes to sustainable development goals, those three elements I mentioned before, environment, society, and economy are very important. Maybe the new is that when it comes to environment, it is the most important, because that is where on basis of what you can build societies and economy. And in the classical, maybe economic thinking, the economy is the most important. You can see that in political discourse also in some of our countries. Unfortunately, I have to say that it is still the same in Estonia, that the economy has been seen as the most important, and then all other aspects should be based on that without the economy we don't have prosperity, but actually without the nature and without the biodiversity we cannot to survive. So that's why it is the most important when it comes to maintaining sustainability and sustainable development. What is sustainable business? Although I highlighted the importance of the environment and the resources environment provides us, sustainable business is actually also about providing positive impact on society and environment. It is also about taking equal care of the needs, concerns, and opportunities. And for example, what companies can do, they can reduce the CO2 emissions, they can promote the equal career opportunities, and they can also collaborate closer with local communities. So it is about the environment, but it is also equally about the people and about the community. About how to include sustainability in the business strategy, or what is the business sustainability strategy. So one element is that it is important to include sustainability in all decisions and make it part of your organizational culture. The second is that it is important to work with suppliers and customers to make sure that you produce and dispose your products responsibly. It is also important to invest in staff well-being and put the people at the center of culture and strategy of your organization. And why it is important, it is that people are the biggest actually asset for the company. You need committed team in order to achieve your goals. And as I mentioned before, that people themselves, especially young people, they want to be part of creating value and building the value. And that's why I think it is very important to collaborate with them involve them in decision making, to engage them through purpose and vision, but also it is important to build trust and resilience through walking the talk. So it means that when you have set your priorities and values, then it is important also to follow them and to really implement it as well. Now, how to integrate sustainability in your business strategy? Sorry. The first is that it is important to raise awareness about SDGs. So how you are working with SDGs, you can explain what SDGs are to your board, but also to your employees and staff. And it is also important to communicate about it. Then it's also important to prioritize the SDGs. And for that, you have to, I think, look inside out and outside in perspectives when prioritizing the SDGs. And what does it mean? It means inside out means that you have to think what are the values and objectives and needs of your company, who are your consumers, and how you can produce your products in the most responsible way. But outside in perspective is that you also have to listen and be in dialogue with your consumers, what their expectations are, what their needs are, and how they would like your business strategy should be built. Because as I mentioned before, the consumers are demanding from the companies more and more sustainable and environmentally, let's say, positive products. So in that sense, it is important to be in dialogue with them. I'm sorry, in order to really get their opinions and their needs and interests on board as well. Then when it comes to strategy and implementation, so it is important to set priorities in line with SDGs and also set relevant targets and also planning your actions to meet those targets. And also very important when it comes to let's say, moving towards more sustainable business strategies, that you have to regularly impact the assessment. And for that, of course, you need to define indicators and collect data, and also to communicate that the company's based impact to stakeholders. Now, when it comes to Nordic example, then I really, from my experiences, I have to say that that in Nordic countries, sustainable development is, let's say, one of those core backgrounds and reference points when it comes to societal change. And I think all society is very active and very aware about SDGs, and they all are interested in contributing to that. A couple of years ago, there was one study carried out among Swedish companies in order to analyze how they are working with SDGs and whether they are aware of the SDGs as such. And 100% of the companies who responded or participated in this study knew about the SDGs. They also agreed that the customer demand and increasing trends towards sustainability have had a major impact on the company's business strategy. So it is this outside-in perspective. So they are aware that actually their consumers are, let's say, the expectations and the needs have changed, and they have to change and their business strategies accordingly. Then 92% of respondents said that sustainability work makes companies an attractive employer. Again, related to what my example on the expectations of the millennials when it comes to jobs. 89% said that sustainability is for them, and they see sustainability as the business opportunity. And 63% said that that management's understanding and prioritization of sustainability has a very big effect on the impact of the work. I'm sorry. In Denmark, also sustainability is considered as a priority in the private sector, and 70% of the companies are aware about the SDGs, and it is quite big change comparing to 2017, where the number was the percentage was 30, and 25% of the companies have integrated SDGs in their business strategies. I'm sorry about this cough. I'm recovering from COVID, so please take my apologies. Now, I wanted to provide a couple of examples from Swedish companies, because Sweden is the country I know the best. The one example I wanted to provide you, and I know those people behind of this company personally as well. So there was a group of young people, and they came together and they kind of discussed that they are very worried about how the wood is wasted. They are very concerned about the climate. They are concerned about the global warming, and they said that we want to do something about it. We want to support in order to improve the situation. And they came up with an application. They developed an app that connects the restaurants and grocery stores with users who are eager to purchase unsold food at a lower price. So they created this resource optimization platform for the food industry, and their aim was to lead the way towards a more sustainable society, because what they saw was that especially in the restaurants, because they started with the restaurants, now they have moved also to grocery stores, or not moved, or enlarged this application. But what they saw was that there is a lot of food that is actually thrown away by the restaurants, because restaurants are, let's say, pre-preparing certain amount of food, but if there is not so many, let's say, clients, that night at the restaurant, then this food is actually wasted and thrown away, and they wanted to do something about it. So that's why they came up with this application that kind of brings together the restaurants and the people who are interested in buying that food, because it is actually not, it's fresh and very high quality food. And I think it is a win-win situation for both, for the restaurants, because they don't have to throw their food away. They can sell it and they can, let's say, benefit from it. But also it is good for the people who can actually buy the food from the restaurants at a much lower price. This is one of those examples on mission and value-based, let's say, business creation. I also wanted just to show this is their work advertisement. So they are saying that they want to hire someone with fire and initiative, and they are also expecting that the people in their team are motivated and they have curiosity. They also want that their team members are humble and empathetic. They listen to one another, and that every person and that team is able to make decisions and take responsibility. So I think it is also very much on this kind of the culture of the Karma organization. And as I introduced before, what is sustainability strategy for the company and how to involve your employees in decision making and business development. So I think this is very good example on one of those examples on how it can be done. The second example is also coming from the food industry, and this is Max. And I have to say that this Max Burger restaurant chain is one of the biggest in Sweden. Yes, they are using meat, but I just wanted to kind of to show and introduce you. Sorry. Yes, you might say that I mean, why you are introducing the restaurant who is actually, let's say, providing or preparing food from meat, because it is not very sustainable. We know that the CO2 emissions, which comes from farming industry, is one of the biggest in the world, together with emissions from transport. But here I just wanted to provide an example on how actually the company can still work with sustainable development, and how they can really think about on how we can use the resources more responsibly. For example, in the case of Max, all electricity is, for example, generated by wind already from 2008. They also launched a Green Family Initiative, which means that they came up with 5 new low climate impact meals. They have less than 1% of the food in their kitchens that is wasted. They are also working on energy efficiency issues like recycling heat and self-adjusting heating and cooling in their restaurants. They also using only Swedish meat, which is actually more expensive comparing to other meat products from EU, but they wanted really to reduce the ecological footprint, in the sense that they would like to buy their, let's say, products as close as possible, and also that the EU Swedish beef is having lowest levels of antibiotics in the European Union. They also have eliminated some unnecessary packaging. They are also recycling all the oil they are using for frying. They are recycling it into biodiesel, and they don't use any palm oil. When it comes to meats, then they also have the objective to reduce the sales of the meat, red meat, and then their plan is to increase the sales of the non-red meat meals. What they did was that they engaged external experts who conducted an interview of the company. And also they conducted inventory of the food's total climate impact. So they actually assessed this impact from the farmer's land to the finished hamburger product. They also assessed the CO2 emissions throughout the company's production chain, and they are monitoring of the carbon neutrality standard. And for example, from already June 2018, it offsets 110% of emissions that cannot be reduced. Now, why this sustainability assessment is important? At first, it helps the companies to make better and more holistic management decisions, but it also helps to shape and communicate the values of the company. And of course, it helps the companies to be more, to produce more environmentally friendly and more sustainably. I just wanted at the end of my presentation to provide just some tools you can use for self-assessment. This one is very, very simple tool that we have been using in analyzing and assessing how to address all sustainable development goals and how to prioritize them. So if you have time at home, you can, for example, assess how your company is connected to all 17 sustainable development goals at first, in order to see, those connections and interlinkages. Then you can also identify, with the help of this circle exercise, that which are the priorities, which SDGs are the most important for your company. And then you can also assess that, that which SDGs your company's activities are influencing or impacting both negatively and positively. Just to see, how you and your company is connected with different sustainable development goals, and also, how you can contribute and how you can work with SDGs. The second tool is a platform called Become, and it is actually environmental audit tool that helps to measure the company's ecological footprint. And by the end of this audit, each product receives a unique QR codes through which the customer can also access the product report. So this is also about the communication of your products. And the audit basically shows where the raw materials come from, in which factory one or another component has been manufactured, and also kilometers used for the production of the various, let's say, parts of your product. And the audit helps to assess the sustainability of the company's products, both throughout the supply and production chain. It also provides specific numerical indicators to the company's activities, and it also shows opportunities for more responsible production. And as I said, it provides better opportunities to be transparent to customers. The second one, which I like more, is a platform called Future Fit Benchmark. And this is a self-assessment, it is free tool. So companies can use it free of charge. This is self-assessment tool which helps companies to manage and improve their both social and environmental performance. And why I like it, it is because that it includes also the social indicators in the assessment. So the methodology of the Future Fit benchmark is that it includes 23 indicators to assess the negative and positive social and environmental impact of the company in 7 areas, which are energy, water, natural resources, CO2 emissions, waste management, but also impact to the communities and nature, and also impact to the well-being and health of the people and employees, which is the social performance area, and also code of conduct of the company, which is related to procurement, paying taxes, lobby, leadership, and all other similar elements. So if you are interested, you can Google Future Fit Benchmark. This is platform was created by a UK-based organization, and you can find this platform when you Google it. But last but not least, I just wanted to introduce you, let's say, new ways of thinking. Or what is expected from the leaders. A couple of years ago, the group of Swedish leaders, they came together in order to discuss and identify what kind of new leadership, let's say, skills is needed in order to support sustainable development and sustainability. Because as I said, implementing SDGs requires completely different mindset and a different way on how we see our organization or our company. And the other company called The New Division, which is actually owned by Jakob Trollback, who is actually the guy behind of those 17 sustainable development goals, what it is, illustrations or those boxes. Jakob Trollback is also senior advisor of Global Utmaning. I'm very happy about it. But Jakob put them together. I mean, those new, let's say, new leadership skills that are needed for supporting sustainable development, and he just made a very nice, let's say, kind of summary about it. So what kind of new leadership skills are needed? The first is that lead with sustainable vision. That's what I said before, that the companies need to think about the vision, also about the values. Then make your purpose clear so that you know what you want, you know what your mission is. Like Karma, for example, they had very clear understanding and vision on how they would like to make the change, how they want to make the world a better place. And that was their purpose, to contribute to fighting against the climate change and fighting against of waste of food. Then also that information is not communication. So only numbers is not enough, but you really have to think on how, what is the story of your organization? What story you tell to your consumers, your clients, your cooperation partners. Also build inclusive organization. It was about involving your staff members, involving your employees, giving them responsibility and giving them the meaning in your organization. Then, as I mentioned before, integrating sustainability in everything you do in your organization. Solving stakeholders' challenges. It is related with consumers and their changed expectations. Collaborate within the system, and that is what I see, what is happening quite a lot in Sweden, for example, and especially when it comes to smaller companies. So that instead of competing and instead of seeing, let's say, other company as a competitor, they are collaborating because they have understood that together they are stronger. Together they are stronger when it comes to finding or entering in the new markets, and they can benefit from each other's knowledge and skills. Learning from the digital transformation, I think this platform I mentioned before, which also, let's say, provides digital code for the products, is one of those examples. For example, educate the board of directors. From sustainability point of view, as I mentioned before, it is very, very important that the company's leadership and board members understand the importance of sustainable development. They understand what SDGs are, and they support the sustainability strategy development and implementation in the company. And involve the entire organization. So I'm not going into through all of those 17, but those were the main highlights from the Swedish business leaders regarding what kind of leadership we need in order to support sustainable transformation. And that is all from me. I'm happy I was exactly in time in my presentation, and I thank you for listening. I apologize of my coughing, and now I'm opening for the questions.
Yes, thank you, Krista, so much. We have gathered a couple of questions from the chat, and there was also a question sent in before the training through the registration survey. Which was, in what cases are voluntary measures more effective than regulatory measures? Maybe we can start with that.
In what cases? I think it should be a combination. Definitely, when it comes to regulatory measures, they are, let's say, I would say, they are forcing the companies maybe to just move faster and to really think about, how to change their business strategies. And I think it is very positive. As I mentioned, that European Commission is moving towards more and more, let's say, sustainable and climate neutral policies. But I think that actually those voluntary assessments are much more beneficial, because that is part of you. You have, because it is about the values and it is about what you want to do with your organization. And I think you will be much more successful if you are carrying out those voluntary assessments, because you are doing not because that someone just forces you to do it compulsory. So you are not doing for someone else, for the regulator, but you are doing it for yourself and for your company and for your people and for your client. So I always, even if there is no regulatory requirements in place, I would definitely encourage you to really use and carry out voluntary assessments. Those two examples I gave, they didn't do it because there has been any kind of regulatory, let's say, requirements for them to do it, especially when it comes to this hamburger restaurant chain example I gave you. They did it because they wanted to be more sustainable. They wanted to be more responsible in their business. That's why they did it. And I think now it is much more easier for them, because they started already 2008. And now when there will be more and more regulatory requirements from the national, let's say, level, but also from the EU, I think they are very well prepared, because they have already did, like very big part of the job. So it's for them very easy now to meet those requirements, comparing to maybe some other who has been done the changes or has been carried out only those assessments that has been compulsory.
Yes, that's a good answer. Thank you. Reen was asking in the chat, has COP26 lifted or shifted any of the SDGs or their indicators to spotlight? Has it been any way affecting?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I fully understand the frustration of Greta Thunberg, and I very much support, all her expressions, including blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to COP26, I think there has been some positive developments regarding, let's say, SDGs as well. But I still think that unfortunately all those, let's say, those decisions are coming, they are too little and too late. And of course, in that sense, it has been, COP26 has been, slight disappointment, because no big and important, let's say, decisions regarding achieving 1.5 or keeping not keeping, we are already exceeding it. So let's say achieving 1.5 degree level is very, let's say, challenging or problematical, because the governments, unfortunately, they don't walk their talk. But when it comes to like EU, then I see that European Union is quite, let's say, now actively is moving towards more, let's say, climate neutrality, and I hope that at least when it comes to EU member countries, then that there will be positive and faster developments. But globally, the results of COP26 has not been, very good.
Thank you. I see in the chat also that Maya was asking if there are any research in Baltic supporting the statement that consumers here are giving more attention to the product sustainability. And Agnesa, you have also provided some research and links, but I was just wondering if, Krista, you know of any more that's out there?
No, unfortunately, I don't know. I just referred only this one, which we did in 2018. Actually, it was renewed also last year, these bumps on the road, but there hasn't been, you know, very big, let's say, changes comparing to 2018, I think it is mainly related to, because when it comes to this, let's say, Baltic Sea region as a general, we have Poland, which has very extensive still, let's say, coal mining industry. They are still using a lot of coal for producing electricity and energy. And also Estonia, we still have in our energy sector is still very much depending on coal. So in that sense, I think that is what actually makes this SDG 11 also red in our assessment. But in Baltic countries, like in the Baltic Sea countries, the biggest challenge was actually e-waste management, that we are producing a lot of e-wastes, and this e-waste is not properly, let's say, taken into the circulation again. And that is the challenge for all of the Baltic countries.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. There was also a discussion brought out by Roman regarding that, Krista, you didn't mention topics of sustainable development related to demography. I wonder if Roman, would you be willing to comment that yourself? What is what you meant or wanted to bring up here? If you're okay with that, or if you're here.
Yes, thank you very much. Basically, my question was, it's good to have SDG, but as I mentioned, if current fertility rate remains super low as in all developed countries, then basically all unsustainability issues will be solved automatically in a couple of generations because of depopulation. Should we be in a hurry now?
You might not like my response, but globally thinking, I think low fertility rate is very good, because just our planet is not able to feed all the population, which is globally increasing. Well,
I would say personally, I have another point of view, and it's just a question of cheap energy, and because we have seen that during last century, population grew by a few billion people, and still now much less share of population is dying because of malnutrition or because of poor food. So now it's much more better than it was like 100 years ago. So, anyway, the question is really, will this unsustainability will be solved, maybe solved automatically, because if we see depopulation everywhere, very, very soon, because now Chinese population is declining as well. So it's just a question of time.
Yeah, but globally still the population is growing and not declining. But actually, I think it is very good question, also from sustainability point of view. So if there is problem, and I think it is problem in all our 3 Baltic countries, in Estonia as well, that the number of Estonian population is decreasing as well because of low fertility rate, and there are more and more young women who doesn't want to have children, also because of all those global challenges we have, and the environmental problems. But actually solving that problem is very much related to SDGs. It is about SDG 5, which is gender equality, and it is about the SDG 8, which is about decent work. So I think that if our countries would like to solve this issue, we really have to think and assess what is the problem that women are not wanting to give birth anymore. Maybe it is about lack of good work and home balance. Maybe it is about lack of providing distance working possibility for women. Maybe it is about of equal share of let's say family responsibilities and jobs. Maybe it is about I don't know, maybe it is about low, and it is not even maybe, but it is definitely also about that there is still income gap between women and men. So I think that there are several aspects that then should be, kind of analyzed and taken into account in order to see what can be done in order to motivate women to have children, basically.
Okay, should we learn from the countries where fertility rates are high?
And I don't think so, because in the countries where fertility rate is high, there are completely different reasons why it is so. Because the mainly, and actually it has been listed as top 20 main cause of global warming. So in other countries, the fertility rate is high because girls and women, they don't have education. So they are staying at home, they don't have income, and that's why there is so many, let's say, children. They are having so many children. So in actually like developing countries, one of the key issues that has been highlighted is that you have to provide women and girls education, and then the let's say fertility rate will decrease in these countries.
Okay, and carbon footprint in these countries, is it also quite small comparing to the developed countries?
I cannot answer to that question because I just do not have this the data with me, so I can't respond to that.
Okay.
I would like to respond to that. So there are two things that I would like to mention. There is latest Deloitte report, a survey that states that 23% of working women after COVID is not going to return to their work. And that's due to the lack of balance of work and not ability to agree with the management that they will be able to work distant or in flexible hours. Also, for example, in Latvia, we don't have such a culture that you can work some hours, even you have a little children, or you can work half time from your work. It's not a culture there. So if you are there 100%, then you are, we like you. If you don't want to do it, then it's like your problem. Then another thing is inequality in income, because when you pay taxes, for example, then you get 40% of your brutto pay for the maternity support. And that's, I'm sorry, sometimes even less than average salary, minimum salary. I'm sorry, not average, minimum salary for the person. So how do you think educated, healthy woman would just like do it 5 times, for example, in a row? It's just not wise. So that's why in the countries where people don't have a choice, don't have education, these fertility rates are much higher. Also, it doesn't mean that all the kids survive and the woman survives, because the health system is poor. Why they are increasing? Because these countries are becoming more healthier, more economically viable. So these kids are not dying anymore so much, but they are still, they are born. So the problem is that there was a survey made, what Africa should do about the climate change. And the conclusion was educate women. And that's one of the most powerful statements that I have ever seen so far in connection with and climate change, because it is true, and that will decline. If you will even look your footprint, little test on World Environment, this WWF Fund, they have the test. If you are a family with 2 or 3 kids, you are polluter number 1. So it's just like sort of a fun joke, but actually it is true. And so I think conscious policy from the government, I'm not talking about regulation, but just conscious policy to support inequality, not to support quality, and I think that's the key, not to just push women to bear children if they are economically violated for that.
Yeah, and to add, when it comes to giving education for girls and women, that was among top 20 most important and key measures in order to fight against the global warming. So it was exactly because that if you provide them education, especially in developing countries, then they will have less children, and it will have positive impact to global warming, because there is less mouth to feed. There was also, Agnese, you raised the issue that we have a saying in Latvia that space doesn't not like to be empty for long, and there are challenges related to climate migration. Actually, I have to say that when it comes to Sweden and other Nordic countries, this climate refugees issue has been in very high political agenda for quite a long time. It is, I think it was already like in 2015 when, for example, Sweden very clearly decided that they have to elaborate the strategy for that, because it is increasing and it is not going away. So that sooner or later we will have climate refugees in our countries, and we have to prepare for that. And I think it was very right decision for Sweden to do it. During this Syrian refugee crisis in 2000, when was it? Was it 16, 17? It was very interesting that, for example, like the Swedish government changed a little bit on how they are giving let's say how they are, let's say, dividing the refugees between the different regions in Sweden. Before, it was every municipality who would decide, how many refugees they would like to take, but then it was kind of given that decision to regional government, and actually local governments were extremely let's say upset about it. And you know why?
Because of money.
Not only because of money. They was upset that comparing to let's say before, now via this government kind of, let's say, distribution system, they got less refugees in their municipality than before, and they were very upset about it, especially those municipalities who were in north or like far, like rural municipalities, because they said that we need those people. Our population is decreasing, young people are moving away, we have only like older people left, but we need someone who is, let's say, providing municipal services, and we need people who work, because it is also about the income of the municipalities and taxes. So they said that we demand no more refugees to our municipality, because we need those people. So, which might be quite, like surprising comparing to maybe, like opinions of, for example, some Estonian municipal leaders during the same crisis. But I think that definitely climate refugees is increasingly, let's say, increasing, let's say, group it is not going away, and we really have to prepare. And maybe we should also see them as, to some extent, as opportunity for us and not only the challenge, but we just have to be very, very well prepared in order to integrate those people in our societies and teaching our languages, etc., etc.
Thank you, everyone. It's definitely an interesting and important discussion here. But I also feel we need to take a small break before we continue with the second part. Unless anyone has any more questions, we can thank Krista for the very insightful presentation. And we can go on a short break, and maybe we can meet back here at 11:20, if this would be okay for everyone. And then Merili will continue with corporate social responsibility and circular economy. Thank you for now.
Thank you.
So hello from my side. I hope that everybody is still enthusiastic to learn, and that there's going to be a very smooth transition from Krista's broader view into a bit more detailed view on what sustainability means practically in the business or from the business side. So just a brief introduction of myself. My name is Merili, and I'm currently heading the ESG services in PwC Estonia. PwC is not a new place or thing for me. I used to work as a management consultant in PwC 10 years ago. But my connection to sustainability, or how I see sustainable development, is mainly because of my work with the NGO sector, or being more precise, when I joined in 2017 the Let's Do It Foundation, who were at that time preparing for the world's biggest cleanup action. And I had the responsibility to work on international relations, which also means that I was very closely involved, also participating at events like UN Environmental Assembly, or I didn't go to COP, but similar preparatory meetings also. So it's, for me, the things that Krista mentioned and how I see sustainable development is very much the combination of governmental, private, and third sector contribution. The second pillar, or the way how I see sustainable development as I do, is because of the work with the Responsible Business Forum in Estonia. I was responsible for developing the new methodology for our Responsible Business Index in Estonia. Last year, we assessed, or the companies went through self-assessment. 62 companies participated, and it was so good to see that 19 companies actually achieved a gold level of the index, which means that there are already quite many local companies that are by their business model or nature sustainable. And the third angle of sustainability for me is through Rohetiger, a Green Tiger initiative in Estonia, which grew out of Let's Do It Foundation and is focusing on creating sustainable business models in Estonia and Estonian companies and also organizations. So that's like my background of how I perceive sustainability. But you've already seen the picture today. But I thought that I will just briefly go again with the concept of if we talk about what's wrong in the world, or what are the biggest challenges that we are tackling either with the SDGs or other common agreements, then as well as as Krista mentioned, Kate Raworth's donut economy logic of thinking our world as something that is limited with the boundary of the planet where we live, but also we have the needs, the social foundation that we need to meet in order to function as we do currently. And it's a bit related to also the demographic questions that we had before, that what is that safe space that we can actually operate also as businesses. It's not for governments, it's not for people, but it's also the same logic applies to every business on the world, basically. And my picture is a bit different one because I wanted to showcase out of 9 global environmental challenges, we are the most struggling with the climate change, with biodiversity loss, and with land conversion and nitrogen and phosphorus loading, which are the problems that we still haven't got into our control. Other climate problems are a bit easier, or we have some sort of solutions that could hold them into the boundaries. And with social foundations, you can see yourself that we are still struggling with, in the most of the world, with a political voice, with peace, with social equity, with gender equality, with health issues, and also safe and sound place to live, meaning housing, energy, water, food. But what is the corporate response to that challenge that we have in the world? And as Krista mentioned, SDGs can be one of the concept or idea how to see what we have to do. But the corporate world has been talking about a little more maybe structured and more organized way of doing business, which means that we talk about environmental and social aspects that are governed by the companies. The picture here brings together what are the main hot topics under each pillar that we as a company are struggling at the moment. Of course, climate change is one of the issues, but also the use of natural resources. As I mentioned, the biodiversity loss and land conversion are very big problems. Water also is a huge, having an access to safe water and fair access is a big problem in many places in the world. Not to mention pollution and waste. As Krista mentioned, Estonia's big problems as electronic waste. Same probably in Latvia and other European countries. We are struggling with packaging materials and packaging waste and toxics, but also not to only see the aspects of what's wrong with the environment and how we need to tackle the problems, we also integrate environmental opportunities into business models. And this means that we need to seek for more opportunities in clean technology, in green buildings, in renewable energy, and that's what corporates are from the side of dealing with the challenges, trying to identify for themselves. Also going through the social pillar, then of course we need to talk about the human capital, which means that if we look inside the company, we have our labor market or our employees, their health and safety is very important to us. Also how we develop them, how we educate them, and not only within our company, but through the whole value chain. We need to look back to the supply chain and also to the client side. If all our partners are equally worried and dealing with human capital issues. Also, what is it that we produce, the product liability? Are our products safe? Do we use chemicals or not? Do we provide safe financial products? Do we have any issues, or are we protecting enough our privacy and the data that we own? How do we invest? Is it responsible? Do we have any health or demographic risks involved? Or are we contributing to the problems? Also stakeholder, and here is mentioned opposition, which means that it's good if the stakeholders are in line with what we are doing, but it can also be a conflicting place where your main stakeholders may not feel the same, be in line with the sustainable development goals that you have, let's say, chosen to tackle with or contribute to. And equally important, the social opportunities as the environmental opportunities. Can we or do we provide services to have better access to communication? Do we give people better access to finance, to healthcare, or is it maybe a well-nutritioned and healthy food that we are providing to people? Saying that, then anything of that wouldn't happen when we don't govern our companies in fair and transparent way. So there are corporate governance and behavior, which one of it is more of a cultural angle of corporate governance. The other one is more of a structural angle. Structurally, we talk about diversity on the levels of where the most important decisions are made in the companies. We talk about if the payment schemes reflect our values and our ambitions. We talk about ownership, who actually owns the goals, the strategies that we have, and of course accounting, which is coming more and more relevant due to also environmental reporting and social reporting and accounting, not only taking into consideration the financial aspects of companies. And from the corporate behavior side, the things that we are used to talk about, the business ethics or how we work with competitors, anti-corruption policies, everybody has basically these in place, but are our tax behavior transparent enough? Do we have financial systems that are stable? Are we stable to contribute to all of those goals that we have taken? So this is like in shortly to explain what are the topics that corporates or companies are struggling with if we talk about their sustainability and responsibility. But I love to talk about sustainability or responsibility in a company as a journey, because it is a journey. It has very simple but sometimes difficult to implement stages, starting with the first one and probably the most important one, as Krista also mentioned, where is your actual impact? Do you know what is it, how is it you impact your, let's say, environment or the society, or how does environment or maybe climate risks impact you, or social aspects impact you or your labor or your clients? Once you know what is your impact and how to maybe define it, you go into more strategical view of what is it that I want actually as a business to do, which impact I want to have. Do I want to increase my positive impact? Do I want to decrease my negative impact? And going very deeply into specific goal setting and planning for my ESG activities, for example. Then, of course, when we have the goals, we know where we are heading or we want to head, we need to measure it also. Are we achieving it or not? Where are we? How far are we? What are the biggest gaps and where we have to invest more? And this is all about KPIs and right and fit measurement. And when we have the goals ready, we know how to measure our achievements, we need the actions. We actually need to take action and have a plan how to act towards those goals and measures. And the final stage is, of course, we need to communicate and talk about what we do. Why? Because of transparency reasons, because now it's getting more and more mandatory from the regulatory side also, that we need to talk about our impact and our activities on social responsibility more. In the middle of it all is actually the concept of change. Everything that I described here is describing the change that a company is going through. And that change is not happening itself. It's very much managed, or it needs to be managed. Otherwise, it's not, it may happen, it may not happen, but you don't want to risk with making it as like a guessing whether we're going to achieve what we want to achieve or not. We need to work on the achievements. And how we, for example, in PwC, describe the change management, or the circle, the ESG journey, is that it is from the top. It can be the strategy-led transformation that you're having, or the journey that you're having. It can be transformation-led journey. You can enter from the point of that you already know your impact and you know your goals, but you now need to make them happen. You need to transform. Or you can have the reporting lead. You know that the pressure is coming from the outside, from the regulations, or from your stakeholders, that you need to start talking about what is it, what you do, and why you do it. So this basically is like, if you would ask me what corporate social responsibility or ESG is, that's the picture I would describe it. But let's go into more details with each of those stages, just to understand what does it actually mean. And as I said, that understanding your impact, as Krista already showed, that also with SDGs or any other standard or framework that you as a business would like to use to assess your impact, is that you need to put it in a scale. And the scale has basically two angles. One is that you have to prioritize your issues or ESG issues that are most critical to your business from the perspective of your stakeholders. Who are your main stakeholders? Your employees, your partners, your clients, your suppliers, but also you can, from the social perspective, you need to widen the range to public, to community where you are, you as a business operate, or to maybe very specific group of inhabitants or people, depending on what's the, where do you feel that your impact is more relevant to. And the other angle, of course, is that does this topic or issue has a high impact on your business? How do you evaluate the high impact? I will go into more details with the UN SDGs, and I will give you some of the questions that you need to ask or answer to understand the impact side of your business, both what the impact is on, let's say, SDGs, or how the SDGs or the surrounding impacts your business, basically. So let's just go through. This is something that Krista said, that you can use a lot of tools to do that. But anyway, if you don't use a tool, the logic behind how you assess your impact is almost always the same. You have to learn the SDGs. That's, of course, important, because you need to understand what is behind the SDG, and not only looking at the cover or the heading, but going deeply into targets and indicators also, because this gives us a lot of information. And the companies will often come to us and ask, what is it that we need to deal with when we talk about ESG or CSR? And I'm referring to all the global problems, and also say that, but we have already a set of goals agreed on a governmental level. Why not take those as into consideration as one of yours? Because the government or the global national indicators and targets is only a combination of business people and public sector targets, basically. So the step one, just to go into more details how to assess your impact, is if you take any of the SDGs, let's say list them, do they have impact on your business? It's a very easy question, yes or no. If you go through the problems or problem statements or goals, goal statements, you can see that you can quite easily say if that is relevant to you or not, looking from the impact angle. The second, or a bit more difficult level, is what is the level of impact of your business on the SDGs? This is now going into more deeper analysis of what is my business, what is my core purpose of my business, and how does it reflect the problems or the goals that we have set. And the easiest way here to analyze it is through low, medium, and high, basically categories. But you can have numbers or any other measurement, and the different tools use different measurement. But the idea behind the assessment is almost always the same. Another angle or task what to look at is, could there be an opportunity for my business? Not all the goals and challenges can be seen as risks, but they can very much seen as business opportunities. And it's very important to understand what is it that I'm currently doing. A lot of companies I see also in the Responsible Business Index, they do a lot of good stuff, but they don't know how to talk about it. Then SDGs, for example, can be one of the frameworks to use to talk about how my business changes the world or impacts the world. So this is, again, a simple yes or no question. You can go into deeper analysis, but start with yes and no. Then another layer is what we already discussed about, that Estonia added another or additional SDG, and Latvia has also their own priorities added to the SDGs. Is this SDG that we are looking at priority for my country, or not only considering the country where you are at, because it may not mean that the country of operation of your business is the same. So you need to go and look through every basically location of your operations and assess the SDGs based on the location, because they are varying a lot from country to country. Different countries are tackling different problems, for example, also environmental problems, but social problems are probably even more variable or changing more depending on which region you're operating. And the question, as I mentioned before, is this important for my stakeholders? It can be so that you just ask from your clients, or you ask from your owners, or you ask from your suppliers, and map the topics that are more relevant to them. Or it can just be your assumption on what seems to be the connecting topic of my business with my key stakeholders. And based on those answers or this assessment, you can easily prioritize or set the overall priorities for your business. And by doing it, maybe low, medium, high, also you can add numbers, or you can add different indicators, but you can start with also indicating which are the highest or lowest or not the most important topics for yourself. On my previous slide, I actually need to go back because I wanted to comment on the picture here. It's the Materiality Matrix that our company, PwC, has made, taking into consideration the importance of topics to our stakeholders, or the importance of us to the topics. And we have seen that there are much more social aspects of our business that we can influence, and that are more important also to us. And doing the similar assessment, we have chosen for ourselves 7 main priorities to work with. And you can see them, that legitimacy and ethics probably is the biggest because of our nature of the work, but also health and societal impact, or client satisfaction and continuous learning. So that is the core basis of when you start creating your ESG or sustainability strategy that you can take into consideration. Otherwise, you don't tackle the biggest problems or the most important areas. And as Krista already mentioned, that you can always level up those exercises with various tools. There are plenty ready, depending on the complexity, whatever is the word in English, but how complex your company is, you may need to use different ones. But an easy Excel table is also very good just to start with if you don't want to make things too complicated. But what I said, what we said in the beginning also, that my angle of looking at sustainable development would be through, I tried to define it maybe through one of the SDGs, and I'm taking the SDG 12, responsible consumption and production, as the basis. Yeah, there's a bit of confusion also with the name, because it used to be, I think, sustainable consumption and production, but it was changed. And responsible production and responsible consumption definitely more reflects the core concept or the idea behind the goal. But what does the goal actually say to us? It says that we need to ensure that we have sustainable consumption and production patterns, both from the business side, which is the production part, and from the user side as consumers. And one of the aims behind the goal is that we need to take good care of resources, good use of resources. The second one is that we definitely need to work on improving energy efficiency, because as we take back, one of the key indicators of showing of how responsibly the production or a business works is its resource use and energy consumption, basically, because these are the two biggest inputs to the production, basically. But not only, also sustainable infrastructure, how we do business, how we consume, where do we do business, and the last but not least, providing access to basic services, green and decent jobs, and through that ensuring a better quality of life to people. So this is to take into very short description what the goal, SDG goal 12 is about. But if we dig deeper and look at what does the goal actually mean, then we need to analyze the target level. And the SDG 12 has 11 different targets. I've listed them all here. But from the business side, and if now looking also into the indicators, which give a better understanding of what the target actually means, then probably I've chosen to go through the other stages of ESG journey on the basis of the target 12.4 and 12.5. 12.5 and 12.6, the reduction of waste generation, and then another important topic which is about sustainability reporting. Other targets are also, there are ways how businesses can contribute, but these two a bit like that they a bit like how do you say the word? No, they are to me where we can actually as a business contribute to most. Now, saying that what the goals or the targets can be, we can go into more details of what the actual goals behind the targets are. If we as a business set strategies and goals, then of course we all know that the goal must be SMART, which means that it must be specific and measurable and realistic in time. But if we look at more specifically ESG strategy and goals, then of course, again, quite self-explanatory that these strategies and goals need to reflect and be in line with the materiality assessment results. Otherwise, it's useless to do it. But what does actually materiality assessment show? It shows your biggest impact, and that's how you ensure that your goals that you want to achieve are tackling your biggest impact. And learning from different experience with businesses and the way how businesses describe their goals, then a couple of observations or suggestions from my side would be that we tend to too much go and look into the environmental side nowadays because of the climate change, and different environmental topics are very hot topics, and we tend to forget about social and governance topics and issues. But as Krista mentioned, all the SDGs are interconnected. The same is with the ESG topics. They are all interconnected, and you can't basically choose only one to deal with. You need to deal with all three in order to ensure the sustainable development. And also, even if we know that the goals need to be smart, we tend to forget that they need to be realistic and they need to be measurable. So, for example, we've heard a lot about climate neutrality, about targets, zero emission targets, and that's something that the COP26 also highlighted a lot, that okay, we can talk about the target, but we need to showcase also how we are achieving it. And it may not be realistic, actually, if you look at the pace that we are going right now and the target that we have set. It can easily be seen that there are so many questions, and it doesn't look very realistic journey, taking into consideration the business or the people itself, or the business itself actually knows the answer, because they know their business, they know how ambitious they can be and how to achieve it. But sometimes it's that the goal is stated and set because it seems like a very good ambition, without going into details of what's behind the ambition and how we actually want to achieve that. And fairly to say, it is because so that sometimes, or many cases, companies actually have no idea how to achieve those goals that they have set to themselves. So this leads to my next point, that you always have to reflect your ambition. But not only the ambition, where you want to heading, but also the journey. If you talk about the steps that you take to achieve the ambition, it's more realistic and it's understandable, and it is actually understood by stakeholders. And another mistake that is usually made is that the goals are defined as activities and not as goals, which means that doing something, reducing carbon emission is an activity. What would be the goal after you reduce your emissions? What is the level where you want to go or you want to achieve? Is it a zero or something else? So that's also very important to bear in mind. But let's take the SDG 12 as an example again. And as I said, that I was chosen 12.5 and 12.6 as examples to talk about today. 12.5 says that we need to substantially reduce waste generation through prevention, reduction, recycling, and reuse. People who know what circular economy is about know that this strategical target for a company, and all the guides that we read or we have indicate to only one thing, and this is called circular business model. And under that concrete target, we can say that our strategical target as a business can be that we have implemented the circular business model. What is the circular business model? Basically, the picture here describes the overall concept of circular economy, and the circle business model within it is that it's a business model that supports circular economy. The stages here, I don't know how familiar you are with the concept, but just to briefly go through again, it's a circle, of course, but we start from the top, which means that we start with designing our products and services. Once we have designed them, we go into production and manufacture phase. Then when we have produced and manufactured the product, we need to get it somehow to our users. We have the distribution circle, or yeah, it's a circle basically. Then when we have distributed our products or services, we have the users who are consuming them, using them. If they are very good products, they are reusing them all the time. If they have a bit of problems, they repair them. Once we have ended the use of products, we go to the collection phase, that we need to take those things to somewhere. Usually it's a recycling center or a waste management facility. And from the collection, the things go to recycling, if it's a circular economy model. If it's not a circular economy model, the things go to either landfill or to incineration. We see it as we recover maximum resources, and that our loop is closed, and the recycling means that the products are taken back to raw materials and going again into design and production phase. And we start the circle again. So this is like the core idea behind what circular business model is. The second target that I've chosen was about encouraging companies, and there's an additional note that especially large and transnational companies, because they have the biggest impact, to adopt sustainable practices and to integrate sustainability information into the reporting cycle. Here, it's quite easy to name the strategical target that in order to do that, we need to have at least annual reporting, ESG reporting, and to say that not only having reporting itself is not important, doesn't show that we are achieving the goal. The report needs to follow some sort of common understanding, and currently the best ones are the international reporting standards and frameworks, basically. But just to reflect a bit more on the circular business model side, because under the responsible consumption and production SDG, the most mentioned result, or not result, but solution to the problem from the business side is called circular business model implementation. The circular business model is a business model that uses resources efficiently, which means that it prioritizes renewable inputs, it maximizes the usage of the product and the lifetime of the product. And the main aim of having this sort of business model is to take maximum out of the products, to have the products have the maximum value, to recover as much as possible of the resources, and to reuse everything that's left aside, all the byproducts, all the waste. We still call it a waste. It's a bit of an issue, and people working in the circular economy topic know that we actually in the circular economy model or logic don't want to use the word waste at all, but we do. We need to talk about it nowadays still as materials that are wasted, and that needs to be put into a new business model or a new production line again, making new materials and new products out of the materials. And European Commission has taken out 7 key product value chains that moving towards circular economy has the most impact on the goals and the targets that we are having. Of course, as we already mentioned, e-waste is a big issue, so electronics and ICT is definitely number one. Hazardous waste is again an issue, and one of the ways to tackle it is through batteries and vehicles, which use quite a lot of hazardous substances. Packaging, we know that packaging itself, it has a problem of being in use very short time and being made of materials that are not reusable or recyclable, which leads us to the plastic sector, because currently out of plastic production, around 40% or now even more, plastic production is going into packaging sector, or producing packaging out of plastics. Again, a very hot topic, and a lot of researchers and companies are working on what to do with it, or how to actually implement the circular business model in textile industry, used a lot in different industries, also textiles. Construction and buildings, a lot of construction and construction waste is also a big of a problem, because the level of recycling is very low, and again, as same as packaging and maybe plastics, there's a lot of plastics used also in construction and buildings, but the problem there is already situated in the design of the products and in the materials that are used in producing the products, which doesn't help us to close the loops. And the last but not the least, the food, water and nutrition. These are the top priority areas taken as European Commission or European Union into the spotlight of implementing circular business models. Just to define briefly again that I talked about circular economy, but for a company, what does defining the circular economy for myself mean? What does it actually mean in practice? It can be very easily concluded into 4 steps. Circular economy means narrowing resource loops, which means that we actually aim to decrease material and energy use per product. And this means that we need to be designing eco-efficient products and services, which at the same time is only feasible when we decrease the cost of production and increase the profit. That's the idea of how we tackle the problem of narrowing down the resource loops. Closing the resource loops means that we need to ensure that production materials and end products, both materials and the products that we produce, can be, and most important, are actually recycled. But this is something that has like a warning mark with it, which means that even if we all waste in the world that we have is being recycled, this only covers currently only 1/5 of our current material requirements and need, which means that recycling again is not an answer alone. And we go to the next phase, or the idea of what do we need to do as a business. We need to slow the resource loops, which means that we need to use and produce products that are being used longer, which again means that the products need to be more durable and they need to be more long-lasting. This again slows the consumption of the products and decreases the resource use. And the main key point here is that the business model, for me, I think it's probably the key difference between the current business model or the linear business models and the circular business models, is that the business model emphasizes value over volume. The things that are produced are more valuable, and there are fewer things. They produce actually less. And the final stage is regenerating resource loops, which means that we need to use, it's the only way how we can actually regenerate resources, is that we use cleaner production, which means that we don't add as much toxics to the products, because otherwise the production isn't clean and we can't regenerate the resources. But we also need to invest in increasing the use of renewable materials and also renewable energy, and not only talk about of achieving neutrality or net in our production, that we don't harm the environment, but to invest more and try to more achieve net positive products and strategies, which means that trying to identify and invest more into products that actually help to recover or tackle the problems that we already have in the world, and not only trying to eliminate the negative cause. By saying that, we need to explain a bit where are the business opportunities in the circular business model and the concept. And the main opportunities are actually seen in helping to in implementing the circular design models and strategies. And this is important to help to identify all the leakages that your business value chain has, because leakage is a cost, leakage is a misuse of resources. It's something that doesn't work in favor of your business or production model. And the other part is also, and that's actually more important than to tackling the cost, is to actually identify the opportunities where you can generate income from your circular business model. And this picture on the right side actually, to my mind, explains very well how we see opportunities currently, which ones are contributing to circular business models and which ones are not. That when we put into the scale the impact on the environment and the economic impact, then the opportunities where there are no environmental impact or no economic impact, these are basically the opportunities which we don't have. So these don't contribute to circular business models. The opportunities that are with economic value but don't have impact on environment, for example, are business opportunities and can be very good business opportunities, but they are not circular by definition. From the other side, having opportunities or products or business plans that are meant to save resources, but they have no basically business value, or it's very hard to make business out of those products, are the ones that we also don't want to tackle, because they are not very sustainable from the business perspective. They can be good for the environment, but they need to be subsidized all the time to make them feasible. And where we need to put our focus and what is the place where actually to invest the most is the high potential circular products and services. And it's easy to say that I know that every business has those, but how to identify them? There are a lot of initiatives currently already on the European level, and also in Estonia we have introduced, and next year there's going to be trainings and change management program on that. It's a concept called CIRCO. It's a training program which helps to which is meant for businesses. It's developed in Netherlands, and it helps to design, to implement the circular design into your business model. And not only that, it helps you to change, to manage the change, how to move from regular or standard or linear business models into circular business models, basically. If you want to learn more about them, you can go to our Responsible Business Forum website, www.csr.ee. You can also, there's information about the upcoming trainings, but you can also go to the circular economy page, the European Commission page, and there's a description about the circle model and the concept itself. But basically, going from the, just to see what the time is, very good. Going from the strategical view and planning view to the measurement part. And I've also, let's continue with the SDG 12 example and look into more details into the SDG 12.5 indicators, which if we take it, waste reduction as one of the key targets, and how do we now measure whether we have achieved the target? And there's already the SDGs itself, or the explanatory documents describing what the SDG is, gives us a couple of business indicators which are very good to implement or use. For example, the percentage of recycled input materials used to manufacture the primary products and services. Easy to understand. The second hand, the total weight of hazardous and non-hazardous waste, and not only calculating the tons, but also to do the breakdown of which disposal method is used for which waste type. Is what are being reused, recycled, composted, recovered, including the energy recovery. It's very important to emphasize that part, because in many or more and more cases, it comes into which technology is being used in energy recovery, either to say whether this is like in
We seem to be having some technical issues. Let's wait a little bit more to see, maybe Mary Lee can come back with us. Just to confirm, is Merili frozen for the rest of you as well, or just for me?
Yes, the same here. So
Yes,
frozen.
okay. Maybe just see shortly if she can come back. Can maybe take a short break and I will try to reach her.
Maybe anyone has some questions so far, as we are on a break for a second.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yes, now you're back.
So who wants to say what was the last thing that you heard? Who was listening carefully?
Circular economy, the second measurement.
The second measurement. Let me
Yep.
see. I ended up in
Measuring. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, then I thought that was for quite some time talking to myself, but thank God not. Okay. So the yeah, I ended explaining that the amount of products and waste that is from the production part covered by the extended producer responsibility. Extended producer responsibility is probably a known concept for companies that have joined with it. In some cases, it's mandatory in Estonia. In some cases, not. I don't know about Latvia so much. But yeah, that is something that's getting more attention on the EU level, but also nationally. More products are being added to the extended producer responsibility schemes, basically. And with SDG 12.6, it's very easy because the main indicator there to showcase whether you are creating meaningful ESG reporting or sustainability reporting is actually to showcase your compliance to or with the relevant standards and frameworks. Going into actions, again, let's briefly talk about what is important in bearing in mind while planning actions and creating change management initiatives is that the action should always reflect or you should always be able to showcase how they contribute to KPIs, your goals and relevant KPIs. Otherwise, they're just actions and they have no meaning. So it's very important to bear in mind that you integrate your CSR or ESG actions into existing activities and procedures. Krista also mentioned it before. This is very important because it doesn't if the ESG needs to be harmonized with the way you do business, because otherwise you don't achieve the goals and the ambitions that you have, because you do your business and then the ESG lives somewhere in some department or some people's head or some people's responsibility. They truly need to be part of your core business. Only this way you can have, or you can state that your business model is sustainable. Another very important thing to when planning your acts is to map your key stakeholders, as we've talked about them before. But the importance here is that before involving your stakeholders into planning your ESG activities, it's very important to understand what is their impact and their interest, and start with using or involving people that have the highest impact and the highest interest, because it's so easy to attract those people to join forces and help you to implement the strategies and actions. The people with low interest and low impact, they are the ones that you just have to drag along in the end, and the ones in the middle you just need to keep informed, but not relevant. It's not relevant to try to convince them all the time to come along, because you just waste your time and you don't see the value. Another important thing is when planning the acts is to be prepared to fail. That is the case that a lot of companies have shown, that you plan something, you have the idea, but it doesn't come out the way you plan. The only thing is that all the scientists, educational scientists, tell that failure is the only way to learn. So that's the thing that you need to just admit and continue your journey. And of course, it's very important to adapt and change your plans. I've seen a lot of ESG strategies and plans that are the same from year to year. And then you think that, do you do anything with those plans? Or why is it that you always have the same plans and they are not changing anytime. So it's always a red flag if the business goals and plans are very very little changing. Just a couple of examples again with SDG 12.5 and 12.6. Oh, sorry, I'm not going to maybe, you can read them, and I'm not going to maybe mention them all, just to understand that that understanding from the waste perspective, to understand the causes of waste and how it is linked to the design of the products and your services is very important. It's the key element to moving towards circular business models. And the actual implementation, when you've designed your business model, it needs to be put into action also. There's no use of describing the model if you don't actually live it, or you don't act on it. And the key to being able as a community to tackle the waste issues is that we need to extend our responsibility as producers, and also not leave, let's say, when we have finished the production and distribute to the users and say that now it's your problem, but also take care of the post-consumer stage of the product life cycle, and not to tell as much as possible to the end user of what happens with or what should happen with the product once it leaves your facilities, or once it is being used, how easy it is to repair it, how meaningful it is to reuse it, and how wonderful it is to make sure that it ends up in waste management facilities or recycling centers, not, for example, in nature. From the reporting side, it's basically the key word I would say here is transparency, and also the as Krista said, that information itself isn't communication, that the key here is also to communicate to as many different stakeholder groups to be sure that the information is being spread. And going to the final stage of the ESG journey is about the reporting part. And the reporting part is quite easy once you've done all the previous steps, because if you've done meaningful measurement and goal setting, and you have actions and you have actually taken action, then the reporting is only reflecting what has happened. But in reporting, it's very good to bear in mind the 5 C's, that the report needs to be concise, and that it only focuses on material information, and you don't overload people with irrelevant information. And it needs to be consistent. Use the same methodology from year to year, just to make sure that you can showcase trends and your development process. Also, it needs to have the context, put as much as quantitative data as you have about your achievements. The more indicators, the better, because it helps to create the context, and it also helps you to tell your story, because it's not only words. It's not only that I've become better. I can actually showcase that our business has evolved in time. Comparability, which is kind of similar to consistency, but here it means more of use a comparable standard or method to put together your reporting. And benchmarking always helps. Once you see what the other companies, let's say in your sector or in your country, do, then use the good examples, basically. And again, communication. just to make reports or create reports for reporting sake doesn't help anyone. These reports need to, both internally and externally, need to make it to your stakeholders, and they need to be aware that there's reporting, and they need to be able to read it. So it needs to be, you need to understand who are your readers. And it doesn't have to be a long report. It can be for different stakeholders. It can be a news or blog or anything, just to make sure that you pick the right tools to communicate to right stakeholders. And just for the final hint, if you want to seriously go into business reporting and try to see how to integrate the SDGs in your corporate current reporting, or to create the reporting that is based on SDGs, then I love this guideline, which is quite practical and gives a lot of hints. And the guideline is also in line with the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights, and also with the Global Reporting Initiative standards. So those who are thinking of taking them as your examples, then go dig deep into the guide. But that's it from my side. Questions and answers. I didn't see the chat myself, so I don't know if you actually posted any.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I have some questions. From your perspective, so who should be responsible for the change management for sustainability in a structure, and who is in reality now responsible? So are there difference in that?
Yes, it should be the responsibility of all the people who make the business decisions and usually implement the changes, any type of changes in the company. So it shouldn't be different from the way how, for example, you introduce a new product or something in the company, then you have a specific journey that you follow. Usually the CSR isn't anything different. The same rules apply. You need to have the same people responsible for change management as they are in other topics, which means that it's the right place for CSR people isn't in the marketing department. It can be internal communication, because if usually internal communication is the way how changes happen in your company, that's well. But marketing is meant for outside of the company. So if you want to transform, then look for people who's inside and focusing more on the operational and your everyday business side, just to explain what I feel.
Yeah. So about responsible consumption and circular economy, do you see that in Estonia, or maybe about other Baltic countries or Scandinavia, this topic is relevant today, or it's a future?
The topic is relevant. The know-how or the level of experience and expertise in companies is still quite low. We are mainly still talking about now I'm talking about Estonia. I know a bit about Latvia, also no information about Lithuania, unfortunately. But the level of know-how is still quite low, and from the main reason is that there are a lot of companies already doing many actions and are already doing circular business models, but they don't know anything about it. So they don't talk about their business in that way. And we have actually collected ourselves, me and my colleagues, many good examples of companies who are excellently showcasing circular economy, and they learn the word circular economy from us, basically, because they had no idea that they are doing it.
Yeah, we are in the same situation, I think. So that's why it was very important that we talked about it now.
Yeah, communication and training and explaining what it is and how to talk about it, how to report about your activities. In that sense, it's very important step, probably. And the willingness is high. We see a lot of interest in the topic because it seems that companies are understanding the value of circular business models.
So on most typical question, I don't see it in here, but I know that people have it in mind. Does it cost a lot of money to do that?
So to go into circular?
Into circular, or start to take sustainability so as a part of the management and actually work on that?
It probably saves more money than it costs, because if you think it depends on whether you look the short, medium or long-term perspective. If you look at short-term, yes, of course, at first you need to do a lot of like contribution, administration stuff, training stuff, put things in place. You probably need to invest at first. That's true. Looking to the medium perspective, you will gain your investment. You will have the return on your investment through, if it's a social aspect, through healthier employees, in more clients, better services, better products, less waste. Whatever you take, like less energy consumption, like if you decrease the impact of business, it can always be reflected back to your balance sheet and profit and loss, basically. So it's a matter of the perspective that you look. And from the long term, probably I would say that if you have a little money now that you need to invest into something, big sustainable business models, I'm sure that it's gonna give you the return of the whatever century or something, because this is something where every business is trying to head and investing a lot to come up with those solutions.
Okay, maybe some other person has, some participant has any question about that. I think this is a great opportunity to actually ask on people on the field. Okay, maybe everything was so crystal clear.
Or they didn't understand anything.
We will see that in the survey what we will send out if it was relevant. So yeah, but I'm so happy that there were so many Latvians and also participating.
Good job.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining and for really taking the time to dedicate to learn about these topics. And thank you, Mereli, for very good tips and suggestions and knowledge. I truly hope that everybody has something to take from here to actually apply to their businesses or organizations later on. As Agnes mentioned, we would really like to ask for your feedback to this training. And as I see, there are quite many people who did not register through the Google form initially, then we would be very grateful if you could either write to Agnes, whose email you probably have, or to me, or you could also write to the chat in here, just your email address, so we could make sure to share the slides that were presented by the trainers, and also share the feedback questionnaire with you. So I'm gonna copy and paste my email address to the chat in here, so you can reach me through that. And yes, unless there's anything else anyone wants to bring up, I think we are finished for today. Thank you all again for joining and for being here. and have a great rest of the day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for inviting. Enjoy.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.